Well, a House committee is now investigating Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan's connection to an ongoing federal investigation into ComEd's lobbying practices in Springfield. House Republicans called for the committee to be formed amid reports that ComEd orchestrated a bribery scheme to curry favor with the powerful House Speaker. ComEd has agreed to pay a $200 million fine as part of a deal with prosecutors.
Joining us now with more is Republican House Minority Leader Jim Durkin. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, let's start with why do you expect you're going to learn more than the feds have already laid out in their charges, which we should point out have not yet risen to the level of them actually charging Madigan? Why do you think your committee might be more successful at flushing out details?
Well, I think that one will have the ability to call witnesses, and we can talk at greater length to the deferred prosecution agreement that was entered into by the U.S. Attorney's Office and the largest utility in the state of Illinois, ComEd, where ComEd is not alleged, but ComEd has admitted to participating in a 9-year elaborate scheme to a bribery scheme to benefit Speaker Madigan and also his assistants and his associates. We'll have this opportunity to make our case in front of a 6-member panel on whether or not there should be discipline towards the Speaker. This is a very, very serious matter that the legislature has to take up, and it's only fair to not only the members of the House, both sides of the aisle, but also to the taxpayers and the people of Illinois. This is a horrible blemish upon Springfield, and we have an obligation to ask questions. But I've been through these episodes before with former Representative Derek Smith, which I was very involved in that investigation, but also in that disciplinary proceeding, but also I was involved with the Blagojevich impeachment. So this committee will be an opportunity for me and also my counsel to be able to provide evidence to the committee to shine a greater light on this and determine whether or not this is in the best interest of the legislature. As I said earlier, it's extremely important, but it's a very serious matter. I'm using the rules that Mike Madigan implemented, and I'm going to take advantage of them.
Okay. Is there any fear, any concern that this legislative panel or this special investigation may interfere perhaps with any law enforcement investigation that may be going on? Have you taken that into account, and are you worried?
Yes, I have taken that into account, and I can say that prior to the filing of this petition, my office was in communication with the U.S. Attorney's Office about our intentions. They did not say, stop, do not go any further. But it is my intention to not interfere with the U.S. Attorney's Office. And as I've done before with the Blagojevich impeachment, but also with Derek Smith, we were in constant communication with that office about the witnesses that we plan to present, and also give them a heads up about the evidence that we'll be presenting. So if we play by the same rules, there will be no interference. But at this point, I'm not concerned from my perspective, from my role, that we would be interfering with the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Speaker Madigan has been very effective at marginalizing Republicans in the House. You all are certainly in the minority by far. What makes you think any of this will make a difference with his democratically controlled caucus?
Well, I've heard a lot of Democrats in the House and the Senate and throughout the state who are very, very concerned about this deferred prosecution agreement, where all roads lead back to Mike Madigan, in which some members of the House have asked him to resign, other ones have asked him to step down. So it has caught the attention, and it was also very concerning to members of the House of Representatives. All I can do is what I think is right. And to sit on the sidelines when there's an allegation of this magnitude, it would be irresponsible of me to not move forward and to ask for more questions and ask the Speaker to explain himself, as Governor Pritzker has also concluded last week after he became aware of this petition.
And House Speaker Madigan doesn't usually give too many comments on a situation like this, but last week he did fire back, and he pointed to you, asking you to give more information on any job recommendations that you may have given. How do you, I guess, fire back on that comment? What do you say to him after he released that statement?
Well, I'm not mentioned or referenced in the deferred prosecution agreement. I'm not under investigation. This is an unfortunate tack that Mike Madigan and his followers will take, but this is about him. This is about what he has done under the roof of the state capitol, at least in this particular situation, a 9-year scheme to to be part of a bribery scheme between him and ComEd, in which I plan to establish that he did this knowingly, that he was not someone who was unaware of this particular arrangement. So Speaker Madigan can say what he wants. He is the subject of this petition that is, and also this investigation that happens Thursday.
Already House Minority Leader Jim Durkin, thanks for joining us this evening.
My pleasure. Thank you.